into it. It's such a pleasure to be here. It's actually my first time visiting Bangkok in Thailand. And when Rachaporn asked me, would you like to give a talk? 2 weeks ago, I was here, why not? And I didn't expect this would actually turn into something that is quite formal, very serious. And you guys have done a lot of work to contact TCA for this trio, and also, introduction from Francesco. I'm very touched by and very happy, very glad to see all of you here. I mean, this is Sunday afternoon, and you spend time, watching this entire film that is over 14 minutes. And I'm going to listen to an hour-long lecture. So first, I really want to thank everybody for coming today and to share our journey of architectural practice, which is mostly happening in rural area in China. So it's been over 10 years that since we first started to work in the rural context. We've been adapting this pedagogy we call it actually architectural acupuncture, which means a minimal intervention, a more smaller scale of architectural engagement with the local community, with the local cultural context and heritage. And this is also a journey that I think for myself as an architect to rediscover, to rethink about architecture and also to rediscover our culture, especially in the rural side of China, to understand the real side of China. So let me start with this image that is from this Songyang County, which means since the ancient time, people already understood how they could make a production out of observing the nature, the ecological conditions of every specific place, in order to make a living, a survival through a specific production, agriculture or aquaculture production, which is underneath the global scale. Look at this monitors from Peru. We use it also as a reference for teaching images so that so this is to me, this is the architecture. It's a space that to accommodate specific needs, with local climate for the forestry of agriculture. And salt production, because of the salinity of the land of this ecosystem, and tea plantation on mountain, and also the seeded cultivation we just saw in the sphere of Pacific like Colonial City, Choochuey City on the small island, Major Island. And so I'm going to start with the Major Island as a continuation part of the film. With the specific for architecture work with marine ecology and aquaculture. And this is the island with over 14,000 population. But there is the third place in the main center part of island consists of 11 villages and but the whole island of reflects the goddess of sea, and I guess I don't need to explain more about the Matsu and the culture, the custom of this belief. Matsu Temple is the original Matsu Temple, and to also go to the Macau is Matsu Temple, right? So we share this culture and custom, and in modern time, with the local administration wanting to invite us for a iconic museum or iconic architecture, and on this island attract people. Boston people would come to the community, and I actually this or without it's a very hard to see, but people will come to the base and so the island for the pilgrimage First, they would only arrive at March the temple, and maybe they would go to the beach at the center, facing east and this beach, which will be popular touristic place in summer. And also come to this reserve semi park at the end of the island. So these are the only locations they will go to during the pilgrimage time. And every year there's over 3 million pilgrimage visitors coming to this island without going in here, without knowing about the island. So we actually, we made a proposal with the local cultural department. So instead of a centralized museum, so we actually break it into a cluster of locations along this island, which is about 30 minutes traveling, which is not a big island, right? So we can really know all these small locations, small scale of the building, or not even a building, just the convention, that will bring you to the local communities just to understand how the local people work and live on the island. And even on this small island, there's a different kind of cultivation or production because of very specific ecological conditions. And most importantly, these small locations or this cluster of spaces are not just only to serve the tourists, to serve the visitors, but more importantly, they're serving the local people because it's based on the production. It can be really scale in the daily community life. And these are also the life museums of how people live on this island. So this is actually the life museum about life, about living and working, surviving on this island under this lifestyle custom and belief. So I'm going to introduce a few of them. First of all is this White Dam Trail, where at the west part of the island, when it's facing the continent, where you have this very small hill with a stone, it's actually a huge part of rock, and this is on the Whiteland. So this is where it is during high tide. And when the tide goes off, you will discover this massive oyster cultivation, which is large-scale ocean farming, emerging during the low tide. So every day there's twice, every 6 hours high tide, every 6 hours there's low tide. So this is a repetition of this pattern during the daily routine. And the fishermen will just arrive, during low tide to this spot there to collect all the oysters attaching to these stone pillars. So this has been a local production technique or local indigenous skill and knowledge that has been happening on this island for over 1,000 years. With people living here in we call it a basic bamboo, the more sustainable way of producing or harvesting or cultivating. So this is a place that we consider this is also the third field. Besides this very scenic, beautiful view. So this is the value to bring people on site to understand how this the basic ocean farming. Something that I said in the field is actually from this city. And since a childhood, I visited this small island during the school trips, vacations, or like the summer vacations, winter breaks. I never get to see this part of the island. And it was until this project and we realized during the research we understood. Especially for myself, to understand what the life happening on this island and how much of the people this is a very specific way of make a living, how they can produce and make a living to feed to raise the family and to pass through this knowledge still to future generations, and which also makes it as a sustainable cultivation system because it doesn't really with the pollution. It's just really using or utilizing the pattern, the rhythm of the nature and the ocean, and we call this specific management system. So we wanted to introduce this to the as a learning field. This definitely has an educational value to the general public. Besides the tourism or the pilgrimage, which is already cultural tourism, we wanted to reveal is part of ecological knowledge as a learning platform, learning field. So then we wanted to work together with the local fishermen to collect all these abandoned cinders and to rearrange this place and also use a stone pavement. Actually, this is also the local technique how you can create a road or a passage to walk through on the mudland. Everything was coming from the site. We were as an architect, we were don't you think about that is we need to design everything, you need to define every detail. But here it's always, kind of a co-designing, co-authorship, co-designing process that we asked the fishermen what would be the best way, what would be the most economic way, and also maybe the most convenient way for you to build something to keep orders or bring them going. So they'll pay into all these, these are all local material, local techniques. So then they were able to work together to build this walkway that this is high tide, and during the low tide, when you eventually see this walkway emerging that will bring people down. Coming from this existing road, there was already built by the local fishermen in order to collect all these oysters. So then you kind of create a walkway. So every day during the low tide, for maybe 1 or 2 hours, you can arrive to this part of the island on in the middle of the ocean. Actually to get to understand this scale of the ocean farming and to understand there's already a tradition of how local people live on this island, without interrupting the space, like in the day life, And the east part of the island, which is facing the ocean inside, there the water drops to 10 meters deep underneath. So this is really facing the major part of the ocean. And there it has the different types of cultivation, like the kelp or this floating bamboo structure. With outlawing or the bigger types of oyster cultivated hand loose. And to further out, you can also see this artificial fish pond, very simple structure of this pond with fish net. So this is for fish cultivation. So some of these work with different types of agriculture emerging in this part of the island. With fishermen working on site. Some of them are environmentally friendly, like the kelp and oyster, but are helping to absorb in organic carbon in some of the ocean water. But the fish cultivation, it depends on what type of fish that you're cultivating here. Some of them can also generate pollution. So working with to collect all this knowledge, and also after the research online with the very recent research paper with the researchers identified another co-cultivation system of these different kelp oyster together with fish can actually reduce the pollution to the ocean water. So we come up with this type of structure to integrate all these different types of cultivation in order to reduce the water pollution into the ocean, and also to introduce a visitor and to help with on this one, but also to create a platform for researchers. Because every month, there's go for students or young researchers coming from it, also universities will come to the island for their on-site, field studies and research. So this platform is for cultivation. but also with its ratio of education, research purposes for young students and researchers. So this is fact that the rule structure and all these ideas come from some of the benchmarks they saw in the field. And this is not, the structure for this also help us to understand what is space, what is architecture. It's not just the structures about physical structure, but the space is actually, the majority of the space distinct underneath the ocean water, where the cultivation happens, found and it becomes such a holistic system incorporating or integrating cultivation, production, research, and also environmentally friendly automation. And potentially the visitor can also arrive here as a learning field. So these are still in testing stage. And I also want to talk about this small one thing, back to the website. We started with a building proposal with the abandoned structures. I think it's this cluster that is on the west side, where on this coastal line, they have already started to plant the mangrove. But then, even though we have already done the design, we realized we were informed that the ownership of this abandoned house is not very clear. They have to work on the ownership in order to progress with the development in the next phase. So we have to stop the design. But then we're walking over this part, we realize, by the neighborhoods, if you look into the mud, you discover this large scale of pond. This was actually the cultivation structure, cultivation ponds for herbs or for plants. And this was built actually, I think was closed over 10 years ago. It was closed down because of the ecological coastal restoration policy and the plantation of this mangrove. I think you also have the mangrove plantation in Thailand as well, along these coastal lines. So this structure has been abandoned for over a decade or even longer time. But we still wanted to, even though our design was stopped, we still wanted to introduce this one mangrove plantation as the ecological, coastal line restoration to the general public and it's also great because for the scenic view to look into this mangrove plantation besides in such a intelligent system on the mangrove can provide a shelter for the biodiversity on the wetland. So here you can see this type of mangrove, which is actually it's much smaller type of mangrove trees compared to the one in Thailand, right? So when you go north upward, they get smaller. I think for us, then we were taught by the scientists, the professor, also top mangrove scientist in China, who told us that the 10 years ago they were already launched to this part. This is the up to the north edge over 10 years ago. But now, with the climate change, now thinking the mangrove protest has gone to Zhejiang province. Our snow very close to Shanghai because the temperature rise to the ocean. Yeah. So from then, everything we don't really see that we observe that trees are very small. But you said this takes huge effort in the past decades to plant these mangrove trees, and they have grown maybe to 1.5 meter investing bomb. But now, after this climate change, now you are able to plant taller types of the mangrove trees in the region. So yes, it's really fascinating. It's already a lot of knowledge, a lot of information that can be taught on this side, right? I think Tony, the people get to do that, right? When you are arriving over people arrive at, or even if you thought they made a school church to this side, this is already basic information and knowledge, messages to be sent, to be delivered here, to understand how the environment has changed in the past, with this climate change, the challenges. And we were also taught by the mangrove scientist, Professor Lee, that this cultivation pond is being abandoned for a long time. But since the mangrove trees are already starting to plant again with the small mangrove trees happening in the pond, so it can work actually if we restore this part of the space. It would actually work better together with the mangrove trees for the biodiversity on the wetlands. So the idea actually, it changed the insight that we realized that maybe there's no need to build these buildings. You can see the abandoned structure there. There's no need to make a beautiful from that. But if we can restore this abandoned pond, and this could be a structure, a new shelter, working together with the mangrove trees for the different species of the wetlands. So that brings us a minimal architecture that we've, working together with the fishermen and the local villagers again, only to renovate these, abandoned or these doing of the cultivation pond. It's creating a space, without it is why it's not functioning as cultivation pond anymore. But it instantly becomes a space, working together with new younger mangrove trees to provide a shelter on the wetlands, a space for different species, but not humanly. But this also can, become a research field of the students that become scientists, researchers as well. So the idea of, all these small integrations along this island is that in such a specific ecological setting, it was already developed through local knowledge, indigenous skills, wisdoms our people can live on the straw island for over 1,000 years by in the harsh environment, still making a living there, survival there. So it is the most valuable part of the information. It's not about making a building, like have iconic physical form of building, but that's the most important part of our social resource. Educational resource needs to be delivered to the general public. And in order for all of us to understand, including myself, to understand the fisherman's life and their skills and their story better. So at the end, it's always about how people live on a specific part of this the world, this island or even greater other regions. And also for us to really think about the concept, the definition of architecture. And so now I want to shift back to this story, which is the first encounter with the Europe that we started to in year 2014. And said 8 years collaboration with the Architectural County, the Mountain region. And this is a typical agricultural county with county urban center and over 2,000 of small natural energy villages in the entire region. And when we arrived, it was seen that the village are definitely losing young inhabitants, young villagers moved to the cities. Most of the villages are left with the only elderly. The old inhabitants, they do not leave. These villages to still have the confidence or hope for their future, for social or economic future. But then if you understand, if you get to know more about this, the rural area, you will really discover very rich cultural heritage and the very strong agricultural activities, still a tradition, still performing in this area. And based on its ecological, again, it is very specific mountain ecological conditions. So the 8 years collaboration brought us to work together with the local communities and local administrations by introducing this acupuncture strategy in the region and to build up a mapping system by, with the minimal intervention strategy to this area, to each village or each rural land, that a small scale of public space will be introduced, really tailored to the context and to the tradition or heritage of each place, in order to serve the community, but also to restore the village identity, as well as working together with the local rural cultural tourism and urban rural connectivities and circulation. So we've been working with the culture history like this Hakka Indenture Museum in this Hakka village. To indenture is the legal documents for the Hakka society, Hakka family. So this village has the largest Hakka indenture collection in the entire country. So here the indenture collection becomes the key element to restore this village, Hakka village identity, by introducing the Hakka Indenture Museum, and which also becomes an opportunity to restore this long lost masonry building techniques. This also becomes a monument for the Hakka Indenture legacy by providing a pavilion, a space, a archive to create this archaeological atmosphere to contemplate this legacy of Hakka indenture history. And with the one village on the flat end, which is next to the county urban center, this is the new Ancestors Memorial Hall. It's introduced village at the center of the village to restore the sense of pride and honor to the ancestor, who is the most important historical figure in the region. For this village that has a glorious past and history, and now completely converted into an industrial zone because its location is adjacent to the county urban center. So now it was surrounded by factories with the chimneys. But then you can still read this sense of pride when a villager started to talk about their ancestor. So that also became the instant common understanding and consensus for this new memorial of the ancestor at the center of the village fabric. And the design actually takes to convert on the structural corners into memorial corners in order to free up the central space, and all the stone carving are done by the factory just right next to the village. So all the elements again are coming from the sites from only within this village context. And the idea to use the corners as memorial corners is also to free up the central space to accommodate different types of activities, some programs, cultural community programs. And we worked with abandoned infrastructure by restoring or reusing restoring this unsafe structure, and also adding the native academy to create a walkway, common space, and pedestrian, which is functioning as a traditional lounge bridge. This is very typical lounge bridge in the mountain region in this area. And it's not just for transportation, but also as common gathering place. Whenever there's important event happening in this community, in this village or community. So this new Shimon Bridge as a open space for different activities, but also a viewing terrace for this adjacent water dam, which was built over 1,000 years ago. And more importantly, this new bridge as a shared common space has become a symbol of reunion of the two villages across the river. There used to be one village over 200 years ago and was divided into two by the flood, eventually it is separated. But now this shared common space is also the reunion of these two villages. And we also work with the natural elements like bamboo, nice bamboo, specifically because we were asked by the head of the village to build something that they would like to have a structure or a space at this public open space by using the bamboo resource as the village is divided by the bamboo mountain here. And after understanding the treatment, if you want to cut the bamboo sticks down, and it's with a intelligence, then we made a proposal, can we just use in this light bamboo because they have very strong roots as working as a foundation, and the bamboo sticks are very, very resilient. You can bend it into a structure. So this is economy, kind of a symbolic space, also representing the traditional literati spirit from the ancient China. And we can create open space in the nature, by the natural elements. Here can be for village ceremony, or you can also reserve the local opera performance to take this space as a material theater in the nature. Then now I want to go into the agricultural production. Of course, every village has their own very specific type of production and plantation. So, for example, this Xin village on the flatland, it's most known for the sugarcane plantation and broad sugar production. So this has become a new raw sugar factory as the starting point to restore this Xin village identity and its intangible cultural heritage. The traditional way of cooking sugar is basically operated by the family workshops, happening in the kitchen, but it has a lot of risks and fire or hygiene issues, and also because of the factories running 24 hours in the winter season, there's a interruption to the daily life to the village. So very new factory plant, in the distance from the village, is to upgrade all the production emissions, and also to accommodate the other community programs, cultural programs. So this place is considered as a central stage with the different working stations are occupied by different family workshops. And this is running in the winter time, 3 shifts every 8 hours. There's a new shift. Start cooking again. So the space is for working as the background with all the alignments with the working station, with the stoves, and also standards like into the structure and the chimneys. But then the main element in the space is really about how these cooking masters, how their motions, their activities, it's like a line performance or contemporary concept of theatrical show. So we also provide the study form for these cooking masters online, which is about $2 and it's really brightened up, all these actually this is to address to all these cooking masters as the performance on stage, and also the lights for the cooking during the evening is also designed as a stage lighting to highlight this motion from the temperature, the steam, all this action happening in the space. And besides this rice skill structure, as which is very common in the local way of building the local factory, also used the acoustics and also red brick, which are both the local material, and open up the views of the space so you can really enjoy the farmlands and then mountain the village as the background. And the space is also used as community center for different types of activities during the non-production season. In the Nagahata village, 𝗟𝗲𝗰𝘁𝗂𝗿𝗲 is best known for the total production. Here, a new factory is built at the entry of the entire village. And actually, this proposal came from the village community after they saw the success of the brown sugar factory, because with the new factory built, and also as a kind of a life museum to introduce in cooking of sugar as an intangible cultural heritage, the sugar price has gone up to 5 to 6 times already in the past years. So this 𝗟𝗲𝗰𝗁𝗁 community, they brought us the proposal and also the beautiful land and the proposal of the scale of this tofu factory and how many people and skilled workers working in this factory. So, we started to take this initiative. So that was a really nice process, and it came very fast with the design of this new tofu factory located at this terraced topography at the entry of the site. And the space is like, unlike the brown sugar as one central space, as a main production space, the making of tofu is divided by different procedures, soaking, grinding, cooking, deep frying, and ready reach to the tasting hall. So it's more like the episodes of this traditional procedure, and it's all run by the local, village union. So part of the community, they're the owner, the operator, and the shareholder of this collective entity. And again, this space is also opened up to visitors as a life museum concept, and also as a learning field. Later on, the space has become very popular for local schools to organize site trips, study trips with this area. And also this knowledge for visitors is open to anybody. So this is also very often used just as leisure space by the local villagers.
Yes.
And all of these, and this is a tasting hall, and next to all of these spaces requires minimal maintenance. So that means basically it's like the ancestors' hall in every village. It's just open space. You can easily walk in without checking points, without saying, reports or bags. So it requires low maintenance and also natural, ventilation. Not only to save the cost, but it's also, the way how people are living in such a environment, in the past hundreds of years. So this can easily be transformed into an open pavilion to visitors.
Sure, Tim.
And later on, the local community also, they imagined this tool program. If you see the picture in the center, this is a tool that is scaled down to the kids, to the child scale. So they made this program for educational program. So, after we see so many sculptures, and so this becomes a very popular educational learning program for the young children with the young families to learn how to operate, how to grind the soybeans, and to learn about this baking of toast in the traditional way. But this educational program also become a very important revenue resource for the community. And so actually, even the space wasn't in the beginning of the design. We didn't we didn't, particularly design this educational program, but later on, when the community started to get on board, they definitely, really ignited little functions, team programs. So, we're really happy with this kind of growth or new initiatives coming after the building is built. It is finished. And, with all these new additional programs, that just make the create new potential for all these different projects. And I want to also introduce, this is a project that is currently under design, and we will start construction next summer. Hopefully it will be built by, by the year 2027. So this is a forest mushroom culture center in the mountain area, and this is actually listed by FAO, World Agricultural Organization, FAO, by UN, as the world's agricultural heritage. So it's really inscribed as this it's a very big recognition for such a cultivation. That is, so later on, the government would like to have built a facility, to showcase for this acknowledgement by the UN level, FAO, World Organization, on their local traditional agricultural production. So this was initially designed, programmed as a culture center for exhibitions, and the site is also very interesting. You will see on the right side, this is a bridge. It's a traditional Laos bridge, like the one that I showed previously in the region. And there was also a temple next to the bridge. This is a temple for which is called the god of mushroom. But then, this is a story in China. All the gods everywhere in China are worshipped by the local people. It is just with this god of mushroom. He actually, is a real person. Really, back to over 800 years ago, who first invented this type of mushroom cultivation in the forest, and later transformed into or developed to different types of the mushroom cultivation in the region. So this is the bridge, that's a temple for the god of mushroom. And these are different types of mushroom cultivation in this region. And again, this is a very sustainable way of cultivating mushroom with the local knowledge, wisdom again. So this is how we propose, based on the program that they wanted to showcase this acknowledgement by the FAO, by the UN level of the recognition. So the space is designed with, of course, as a cultural space, as a community space, and also connects back to the mountain area. And at the back of the site, because of the topography, because of the level change, at the back of the site, we also want to open a corridor that is actually an existing road. See that the villagers can ride their motorbike. They need to keep this preserve or maintain this road for their motorbikes. So this is accommodated, integrated as part of the building. At the back side of the mountain, the building connected with the mountain and looking down to the cultural space, but also connect with this additional mushroom cultivation space. We were really, really happy to add, it just happened 3 months ago that we were able to incorporate this mushroom cultivation space as independent space, because this is outdoor space. It cannot be indoor because of the smell and the air, the immediate level of the air in the space. But this is actually really the cultivation space is not just only to showcase as kind of a live demonstration, but also can become the space that generates income for these elder people, villagers, who are looking under the tentacle of, mushroom god. So this really become a program that can give back to the local community, especially these elder villagers who are still, everybody basically is very skilled, much on, skilled worker on the mushroom cultivation. So this would also, it's integration of the local cultivation production, local knowledge, and also with educational research platform, all these social cultural programs. Later on, after the with these few chapters, later on we were able to understand this acupuncture strategy can also, after working in Songyang region to as design intervention for local issues, challenges, or even critical archery issues. We understand that this can also go beyond or into other religions, and I mean, I'm sure it's also the similar conditions in Thailand and in the other parts of the world. That every place has its specific ecological conditions, and it's very and therefore very unique or specific production or cultivation system and knowledge. But also every place has its specific issues as well. So coming to the Tiantian region, this is my home province. I'm from Tiantian city. But this is the Zhengzhou city, which is only 2 to 3 hours driving from my whole city. But the architecture, vernacular architecture is very different. In my home city, working more like the red tile, red bricks type of the building. But here it's really the red earth structure and gray tiles, stone, because it's in a mountain area. And it was also very troublesome area, problematic. People were fighting like cats in the history, the ancient time. So there was a lot of needs for people in order to live here, to settle down here. You need to live together, work together, but also to fight together. So this is how the 𝗟𝗲𝗰𝘁𝗂𝗿𝗄 is also World Cultural Heritage by UNESCO.
Good.
And then there only 46 buildings are hit scratched, and there's still thousands of buildings. And yes, it was built as a defense structure originally, and also to accommodate collective living. But then the economic development in the past decades, 13 years, that most of the building, most of the original inhabitants built up their own individual houses and moved other and many of the Tulo, even though with such a rich cultural heritage tradition, but become abandoned and into, and many of them become ruins. So they will want to make a proposal to the local government by arguing that moving as new technology, that we don't need to rebuild all of the buildings into a regional condition, but then we work together with the different counties taking a few model examples. So, that to look like this, with the only very few inhabitants still living here, we can connect the corridors, or we don't need to rebuild every unit. We can keep them open as a community space or as a visitor lounge. So then, it doesn't need to finish all these buildings to rebuild them into an old condition. And this one is burned down by fire and become a culture center for members when these walls maintain this current condition as the monuments or as the exhibition of the members. And then with this Qiqong is more than a part and the entrance, which provide opportunity for a lookup platform. You don't need to rebuild all the walls. So this is the idea that to argue that with limited resource of funding that thousands of law cannot be revealed into a national condition as a heritage building. So we can take the ruin as the new technology. We accept the ruin and transform them into courtyards, new gardens, terraces. So therefore we can become a new opportunity for new functions of these traditional and natural buildings. And the last chapter is also the quarry in the Songyang County next to Songyang. And unlike the Songyang has agricultural land, soil, here it's more mountainous, with the stony mountains. So the quarry has been a main production and the resource for income in the past over 1,000 years. But by the year 2000, with the millennium type, with the new Honda City, most of the quarries operated by the family workshops were closed down, and that with over 3,000 of small cases. So I'm going to skip all of the bars. When we were first invited for new buildings, and for the teacher cultural programs for this area, we made a different proposal by reusing these caves. Each cave can be transformed with a different program based on its unique quality or conditions. And together with the geotechnical safety reinforcement, and we were able to transform 3 quarries. First, as the live demonstration by the request of the local workers. And second, because the acoustical effect, this can be used for performance space by young visitors or for local traditional opera performance. And also the third one is dedicated to the local cultural literati or calligraphy heritage context. So here we wanted to reuse all these existing leftover internal topography and transform it into a book market, which is a shared space by the community and visitors as a cultural lending space, a reading room, a study room. And the design is always the minimal intervention. So we take the existing quarry pay space as existing architecture instead of topography. So here, we acknowledge this existing architecture are built by foreign workers. And our role is rather to facilitate, to reveal all these hidden value or potential of these spaces, to that these can be opened up as a public platform or public space for cultural and community activities. So the design is rather minimal by introduce a trace of a lending space or circulation to provide safety into the space. And later on, the provincial library actually took this as their remote satellite library reading room. So basically, you can borrow books from here. And then if you travel to other, like County Urban Center or to other cities like Hangzhou, you can return the books in the other libraries. So this is also quite innovative social program, inspired by the space for carry out into other places. So this is lecture for today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tiantian. I'm Rachaporn Choochuey. I'm going to run the Q&A session with Davide Contran. I am an architect based in Bangkok, but Davide was teaching with Tiantian at the National School of Architecture a few years ago, and now Davide last year. Okay. And now Davide relocated to Bangkok and teaching at India. So before we start a question from the floor, I'd like to invite Davide to give some impression or reflection from your experience working both professionally and academically with Tiantian in some of this project.
Sure. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's okay. Yes. Yes. So, thank you everybody for the lecture. And what I can also in the lecture was refreshing all the thought and all the conversation that we had in 2 years of teaching together. I think I just wanted to also tell a bit how there was also a kind of a big present to the students, the presence of Tiantian in the school, the school, the academic technical in Tbilisi, for who doesn't know, it's a small university in the Italian part of Switzerland, and before in 5 years the students they don't travel outside Europe. But since Tiantian arrived, we proposed on the first semester to bring 27 students in this kind of countryside, region, so the region of which are in China. So the students, they were very excited, but also they were kind of confronted immediately with a kind of a context that is completely different from ours. So this is kind of a really important experience that they still remember with affection. And teaching together, I think the big challenge now you see the kind of the repertoire of projects that Tian has, and she described the project with sensibility, but also with a sort of simplicity. But there has behind really that working in researching of the context, and especially in the territory. And teaching this together, it was not so simple for a student of that they were master students, or maybe in the year 3 and 4 of the experience in architecture, where the students they want to design since the beginning of the semester. And for the first part of the semester, the first 4 weeks, we were encouraged them to research deeply in the context where they were and being chosen to work it out, but not deeply just in order from a from the scientific point of view, from a biological point of view, from an anthropological point of view. But I think from a point of view that is a point of view of an architect, that is not just about the design, but it's kind of thinking about new vision. Somehow this reflects in the work of Tiantian in the way that she kind of proposed to clients different programs, or programs that goes beyond the imaginatory of a client. And I think this is not our point of view, but it's kind of a new vision of what the architect can do, that is not just about the designing of a building, but somehow the client should look for the architect for a vision, for a new kind of way to see the context, and to reveal this context just through a simple framing, or given indication of what the territory can give to us. So somehow the teaching was about how it's really necessary to build what you're designing. So that was a question that we will keep on saying a lot at the students at the beginning. They were super confused, but at the end they were really happy. They were really excited, someone stays down.
We want to say something with several activities. That was really good memory. We intention together. No, actually, Rachaporn, we met at we was teaching at in year 2022, right? And Rachaporn also came to our review at the GCL. So, and that's also the reason that means moved from Italy to Bangkok.
On the first midterm like review, we got like Rachaporn, and it was a really lucky day for me because I heard about India and about like Bangkok, and in November, just like this memory came up to my mind, and I asked you that because it was really very strong. Yeah.
That's also amazing courage. I thought it was really brave that you moved to Thailand, people visiting. And then not only knowing one project, not one person, people the main person. And it's also like you, and it's also luxury to come to me, and that's funny. And to get to know many new friends from now on. So it's really beautiful feeling, beautiful experience to be here.
So very, I think I don't want to ask questions myself unless no one wants to ask questions, because I have the opportunity to ask questions to Tiantian and the audience. So if you have any question, just raise your hands. I will give you the opportunity. If you want, I know. If you are understand during the big
That's the next question. Thank you so much for coming here. I think this is like one of the best things here please really found. And for us, yeah, so by happy to join you the next year. I think my question I want to know about like the backstory that why you just like focus on the small scale. Is that because you study like urban design, like you see the larger scale? I want to know the story about an evolution of your thinking from the undergraduate school to master degrees with practice.
Okay, long story short, it's really a learning process for me and a life experience for me to started working in Songyang first time to really to get to visit the Thompson village in China for me over 10 years ago. And you want after seeing the situation, we realize that this is not the experiential field for architects, like the pre-Olympic time for all these iconic buildings, large scale, but rather it's more about how architecture can provide curing or healing treatment to develop these local social and architectural symptoms and urgencies. So, and also on the other hand, by the very practical side, you never have enough budget. So it was always a limited money resource and also local material resource. But on the other hand, and by thinking or understanding much more self-disciplined a process for architects, without being, proactive, but really coming this, looking into what's available in this place. And then we start to discover more, not necessarily building, not necessarily the physical, tangible elements, but all these intangible cultural traces or legacies. They start to emerge and they become the most powerful, most inspiring part of our working process. So it's really not about how to make the building. It's really about thinking people through the building. But then it really leads to a perspective, a trajectory, how this can bring further impact, social, economic impact to each place.
There was some other just fast about investing. It's very so really amazing process. I think working with the communities and the just they definitely your clients, right? But my question, and they're actually very good collaborators for your project. But my question is, who are you? Are they private sectors or are they governmental sectors?
So this is a very good question. First of all, we don't really call client, we call collaborators. So if we start from the beginning of Songyang, we were actually commissioned with a different project which is still on hold to continue. But then when we were visiting the mountain villages, we were constantly asked by the local villagers, after knowing that we're architects coming from China, because maybe these villagers ever get to meet at the architects. So they started to ask questions like, should we demolish this? What should we do with the village? Should we have, should we build something like, all these steel concrete structures like cities in Hangzhou after they saw it on TV, or they went to Hangzhou cities. So, all these different kind of questions, and that they were thinking, they were not sure what they were thinking about, but they were really trying to make a difference. So, and that's how we ended up, working with all these different communities. In the first year, we took over a dozen proposal projects. Everyone is very small, Sometimes we make the design proposal, and then we would propose to the county government by saying that we can provide this for free, but can the government, the federal government, can fund the project to the collective ownership of the village community, right? So these are and later on we also get to learn, it's really a long, again, it's a learning process. That we get to learn not only local building techniques, material like architects will be mostly interested with, but also the land policy, the regulations, the planning requirements, and the ownership, the different types of ownership of the land, and also the funding resource. This is really important. So we're still working on a project, help them to work with the to make proposals for different resource of funding, like local, county level or provincial level, whether it's agricultural money or it's cultural money, or it's a finance loan coming from the national level. Like one of the projects we're working with is actually coming from it's more like a green ecological project that you can receive specific type of a subsidy. So this is also knowledge beyond school education that we have to learn in the reality. But we feel like we're really, really blessed to be able to, to access or to get to understand the whole social mechanism behind all these operations. So yeah, I think it's actually, I don't see it as extra work. I never see it as opportunity for us to continue learning.
And hi, since you mentioned about learning as well, I was wondering, because throughout your entire series of projects, you mentioned a lot about wisdom and local wisdom, and it seems to me that there's so many wisdom for each part, like the mushrooms and everything else.
Certainly.
Can you talk us a bit to me about how you, like the learning journey, sometimes you can actually understand something so complicated in such a period of time and over again?
I think the most common way, and I found the most convenient way, is just to ask local people. So we have a project, on the island. We met with someone on the beach. He was meditating, fixing his fishing net. So we're just asking, what's special about this your village, or what would you know that is within it's very, you're proud and you think it's valuable. So he would took us, brought us to different places. We also, the seaweed cultivation was led by him, by this fisherman. And in Songyang, the collaboration, works with the local different administrations. So the cultural department play a very important role in this research process. We rely on them to, not to rely on them to provide this material, but actually, you first of all ask about, like the cultural legacy or heritage, but then you also go to the sites to be with the individuals. But later on, I don't want to say that it's only us. No, it takes the total factory. The community will bring us after one successful project, and they will, the other community will think about something may happen to their village as well. So I rather call that I think it's more systematic in a way, because the project, even though it's small scale in the physical scale, but I want to say that impact is bigger because, to reduce this physical scale, so the other villages will know that they can also do that. They can also do something similar on both 𝗟𝗲𝗰𝗵𝗶𝘁𝗂𝗿𝗲, the sugar factory. But they can think about that they can have the chocolate factory, and that the other village can propose it. They want to have the rice wine factory. So this starts to expand. I would rather call this as the scalability of the project. And so it's not that architects has to define everything, and it can't be a limited time as well. But then the most important thing is make this a structure that can really scale up. That can be not to complete entirely, but can really adapt to a similar context. So this then, I think the motivation, from the village community is probably the very important part of this process.
Hi, thank you very much for this fine lecture. From what we heard you talk about funding and creating all of these projects with the rules leaving, I can imagine the challenges of making projects happen and pushing it through to completion. And I'm wondering about the challenges of the after effect of the project, like the maintenance, the operation, and sort of conveying the message of how to actually live with the architecture. How do they fund the maintenance of all of that? How it evolves to stay in the project after its completion, and are there sort of strategies or methods you use to sort of convey how the building should be adopted by the beginning?
I think it's also case by case. I don't want to say, there's only one result. So each of the project, like I said, there will be in the beginning of the design, we don't want it to be over challenged, because we said that it's a light maintenance and it's not very heavy burden in the long term for like operation, like money or whatever efforts or input in the long term. And it's also the case by case, like the total factory, the community legislating programs. But then for the brown sugar, there was really the first factory where we completed. So when we finished the project before the November season, but it was started cooking of that year, right? But we had this Chinese app with WeChat, so we have the group chat. And when we were in monitoring, we asked them to send in photos literally every day to see how it's running. And then we started to see that the villagers toss their, whatever, the cloths that, or did they carry the baskets, the huts which is used at home maybe for the pigs. They thoroughly did it for the sugarcane tourism. So it was a lot of things that unexpected. You will never realize it as an architect. But we were into this role of a supervisor for the hygiene level. How they open the weddings because it was so used to be cooking in the own kitchen without any supervision. But now in a much more open, and we designed it as an open space, right? So the first skill was really everybody was like, oh my God, this is going to be temple. Now you're exposing everything. So there was a training, with all these cooking masters, session, periodic thing. And later on, eventually, yes, more visitors come in, and the villagers, and these cooking masters, they were constantly interviewed and photos, right? So they feel like the celebrities. I think that changed their mindset as well. They started to be aware of how they perform, how they act. So that by now it's all good. Thank you. But I also want to say that with all the factories producing food, now all these foods, tofu, rice wine, or brown sugar receive food certificates. when you cook it in the kitchen, you are not, it's homemade, right? So you cannot sell it at supermarket. But now you can order online, and they can mail it to you and send send to you. Or you can also buy it from the supermarket.
I think we are good for one last question. You will out because we are running out of time. But I don't want to
But you
We already always have that excuse.
it's important to the factors of your attempt. I would like to know that because from the now as an original about the Chinese education, because you graduate from Import, right? And then that's a because of now part two, it's just like Hangzhou, we never really sack because it was studying in Chengdu. So I like go that because this generation of people that develop and can invest. So your generation just start in even six or the six, but first generation is the system. It really so mostly they're going to your hands. But now it seems like the different the people who graduate from T1 don't really go to GSD. So I would like to ask you what's going on this kind of experience.
Exactly for mentioning this, I wasn't really, very much aware of this generational thing. And yes, it's true. I studied in Tsinghua, so at the youngster time, they built up this Tsinghua, University School of Architecture, and I learned from during my study in Tsinghua. Back in the last century, but it was always technical education, and now the education is also changing more towards the international education, cultural, arts and in general. Besides the much more rigorous technical training parts. And I don't really know whether it's the fifth or sixth generation. But I think, working with, when we started in Guru, it was just by accident. He was, friend, a classmate invited for this thing, and we received the, local request and local permission. So we were not planned for any long-term idea of how to work in it role. It was really just by curiosity to visit the village that was absolute. There was no real clear purpose, and we worked step by step. And again, it's learning, and so that's that for me. I don't see how I should put it in, which generation or thing as a trajectory. But I would say it has to do with a lot with the current policy that, I think it's a reflection, not only in China, but global-wise, that we're starting to look back, to contemplate whether urban city is the only solution. How do we deal with the pull-out? Do we let it die? Or is there any real potential in this internet era?
We need to live in a city. That's what you're saying.
Exactly. And also with the pandemic, it's even a bigger subject now. So I think this is maybe the movement at this time of our entire world and the society that we start to contemplate what would be, the way that we should live on this planet, right? With the challenges.
So probably ability to see the
Then the story that could appear is making
I you get money. I really to answer just for example, just one school, right? He write the Kamikaze for the Tiantian case for 30 years or something like that. And it's just kind of going to the own Chinese cultural history, right? But it's just like Jianyun, or just like you who study in the US. And then we can still found your architecture, you have the world, just like Western world of vocabulary or the process of architecture.
compared to just like future code or what's in that this kind of process they go back to history. So I might know the connectivity to on this about the usability. But
Before firstly she answer, I don't agree that inject or wak shu is not Western influence. I don't agree.
That's doesn't mean when the own numbers because obvious that people
I think I kind of speak for the other architects, and I don't think if you were whether you were educated only in China or you were educated in both Chinese or in Western universities, it's such a big difference. Because it's like I said, school education is not enough to claim yourself as an architect yet. And the learning for me, I started in the beginning that working in Europe myself is a life journey. It's a life experience to, when you think about architecture, to rediscover the culture and maybe the roots of how I become really some of the projects back in my home city. So the culture, and I think the ultimate be every one of us at certain age, with we will have certain contemplation of yourself, right? And how you have come along, and when you have studied. So and then to me, this is maybe when I said how people live in certain places. I'm always fascinated by how people live, so generations. And when you talk about culture in form of calligraphy or paintings, but for me, the culture, I would say the basic of culture is how people live. Calligraphy, that's something, maybe at a higher level, and at the end become imperial. For me, I'm not specifically interested in that part of culture, but the way how people cook from sugar, how people plant rice or tea plantation, how people cultivate fish or with aquaculture, agriculture, and quarry as production as well. I am extremely fascinated by this type of action, and I think that's maybe the most basic relationship between being and our nature. We had a discussion on what is the escape.
Yeah, where is the landscape? There was today discussion. Anyway, so I think we can continue with this afterwards because it's some little snack out there you can grab to before the event. And I would like to wrap it up a little bit of this. For me, what I learned from Choochuey's work is that the context, it's not just the background. The context in Choochuey's work is really something that she takes everything in account and cultivate the project out of the context. Either it is visible or invisible, socially, physically, culturally, but of course, as just it's through a personal lens, right? Through personal understanding of the context, and we can try to be objective, but we cannot be completely objective. So, what I admire the most is the idea of how the architecture takes the context in this way.
So this is really wonderful, and maybe I can add into that a little. It's the common discussion we had in the office that during the design, it's always another. It is not we can design. It's we keep saying that design already exists in the context. We need to reveal that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Where is the